Up next, it's volume 2 of our extensive interview with the maestro of music, Alan Parsons, who, as many of you know, engineered Dark Side of the Moon for Pink Floyd and Beatles' Abbey Road. He tells the stories behind his other albums with the Alan Parsons Project, including Eye in the Sky. Again, this is volume 2. He covered the first half of his albums on the last one. This is the second half on Professor of Rock. Hey music junkies, Professor of Rock, always here to celebrate the greatest artists and the greatest songs of all time. If you used to search the record stores out there aimlessly for B-sides and imports, this channel is for you. Subscribe below so you never miss an episode of our daily features, and make sure to check us out on Patreon to become an insider with us. Now it's time for another episode of our series, Revelations, where featured artists reveal rare stories about their greatest songs and albums. Now, on this installment of Revelations, I'm excited to offer you up volume 2 of our long-ranging interview with legend Alan Parsons, uber producer, creator, writer, and mega maestro. He's worked with Pink Floyd, where he won a Grammy for his work on Dark Side of the Moon, and he helped engineer the last 2 albums by the Fab Four. Again, this is the second part of Alan taking us behind his engaging masterworks as the Alan Parsons Project. As always, you are definitely going to be intrigued by his creative output as one of the most interesting figures of the rock and roll era. As we go into this interview, I do want to thank our sponsors, Any Eyewear. I'm wearing my blue ones today. That Professor of Rock on the side, you can actually customize and put anything you want in your glasses. This is the brand I always wear. When you go to zenni.com, you can select from hundreds of incredible styles and frames. And with summer coming up, you're going to want to add some sunglasses. I love mine, and I know that you're going to love yours. Check it out today. Here is Alan with the story.
Time was the first time that Eric had sung a lead vocal. I hadn't let him loose on a vocal until that point, but he pushed me hard and said, please, 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 let me try and get this one song in the can with me singing it. I knew what his voice was like. I mean, he'd always done all his demos, and we'd always had scratch vocals that he would put down. But he was very insistent that he could sing Time, and he was right. He did a nice job on it. It's a huge range. It goes from quite a normal tenor range, and then way up into falsetto on the chorus. It's a very difficult song to sing.
And you sing background vocals on it.
I did a little Goodbye, My Love. I was proved wrong about his vocal abilities, and he became a sound associated with us. When he did Time, he did Don't Answer Me, he did Eye in the Sky, sang on all the hits.
Going from records that were kind of complex in message, and then you started going to a little bit more of an accessible sound, hits and things like that. Was that a strange change for you?
Well, I mean, we enjoyed 2 hits off that album. So the pressure was then on to continue to get successful singles, which was the reason that people bought albums. It's just how it was. If you had a single on the radio, people would run out and buy the album. Yep. That's how it was. The next thing to happen pretty much was Eye in the Sky, and that had the big song, the
number
big title
3
song.
with big hit, and still, I would bet if you flip through the radio at any time today, you'd hear it on some station. The lyrics and the melody and everything comes together perfect. Nothing is forced. As a pop song, it just literally is perfect.
I was ready to drop it. I didn't like the way it was going in the studio. We couldn't find a feel that worked, and I felt it was too poppy, and I was literally ready to say, I don't think we should do this song. And of course, I was never allowed to forget it. Not only by Eric, but some of the band, some of the band players as well said, "We think this is a hit. We think you're wrong." Well, I was wrong. Once we got the right feel, and once we established the all the backing vocals on the chorus and stuff. It came together nicely. I mean, it was a good record.
How do you feel about that song now, X amount of years later, 35 years later?
I sing it now. I sing it live and enjoy it greatly.
There have been some talk on the internet out there that Need You Now by Lady Antebellum has kind of the same melody as Eye in the Sky.
It's a 1:15, I'm all alone and I need you. Eye in the sky, looking at you.
You ever heard that?
No comment.
Have you ever heard Jonathan Brooks?
Yes, it was a nice
She's a
version.
great folk artist.
Eye in the sky, looking at you.
Asia, also.
That was more recently, yes.
Yeah.
Disappointed that it didn't do better than it did. 'Cause I
Yeah.
think it was a great version.
Sirius, this is a song that the Chicago Bulls.
Oh, I love it. I mean, it was certainly never in my wildest imagination that it would become a sports theme. It was simply written as an intro to Eye in the Sky, or as a way to start an album. You know, and it needed something fairly majestic to start the record off, and it got kind of linked into Eye in the Sky, or almost almost as an afterthought. In fact, the first demo was in a completely different key. Re-recorded it so that the key was right to go into Eye in the Sky. Who would have thought that it would become this anthemic?
It's almost become more of a sports anthem than even like Don't Stop Believin' or Sweet Caroline. The New Orleans Saints, their run to the Super Bowl. The Nebraska Cornhuskers use it as well. They've used it since 1994.
It's great. The often misconceived fact is that I really haven't got rich through the Sirius being the anthem that it's become, because it's just played in stadiums. When you play a record in a stadium, it can be anybody. It doesn't have to be. It just becomes part of the blanket fees that venues pay to collection agencies, BMI, ASCAP, and so on. But when it goes into a movie, then yes. Then
Like Cloudy with a Chance of Meatballs.
Yeah.
Who's hungry?
Anchorman 2.
I got a new cologne. It's called Venom. It's pretty much 100% snake venom.
Nissan Altima, didn't they use it as well?
Yes, Nissan did a commercial. Yeah.
Is Nissan now introducing the all-new...
They call it sync licenses when it's used for pictures. Then yes.
Well, they used it for that. I remember seeing it in that Michael Jordan documentary that they did. I think it was Michael Jordan to the Max or whatever it was.
But people think, every time the Bulls walk out and
Right, that you
play
get-
Sirius, that I'm raking money in. It's just simply not true.
Pump Michael Jordan up for those 6 championships. Kind of a calling card. That's pretty cool. P. Diddy sampled as well.
Have is a portion, about the size of the hats in the back of my Porsche. So you better
Old and Wise. I wanted to ask you about that. That was sung by Colin Blunstone, the Zombies.
Colin Blunstone was a drinking partner of mine, way back in the early 70s. We lived in the same part of London, Hampstead, and we used to go to this pub called The Flask, and so we knew each other, and I certainly admired his work with the Zombies. And, we actually did some work together at Abbey Road on one of his solo albums, and it just seemed like a natural thing to do, to ask him to sing for us. Old and Wise wasn't the first time he'd appeared. He'd appeared on Pyramid as well. But fantastic voice, and so identifiable as well. Yeah, he did a nice job on all the mic. Another thing that I wanted to achieve, I don't know why particularly, but I wanted it. I wanted the song to sound like it was being played on a bandstand in a park on a Sunday afternoon, and so we got that brass, that sort of silver band to play on it. And Andrew Powell did a lovely arrangement of the brass. We've actually had military bands play it with us on stage. It's one of my favourite songs. It was our only hit in the UK, interestingly. I mean, for some strange reason, we could not break in the UK, but we had a small hit, like number 25 or something. Huge in Holland as well. For some reason, it was like a number one in Holland.
Lady Hawk. That's become kind of a cult classic.
Lady Hawk.
Of course, she did the produced soundtrack and that music.
Interestingly, Lady Hawk had a screening in Hollywood with Richard Donner there and Rutger Hauer, and they spotted me in the audience and asked me to get up on the stage and answer a couple of questions as well. It had some criticism for the music being a little bit out of period. You know, essentially it's a swords and sorcery movie. It was essentially a rock soundtrack. I think Andrew did a good job. Andrew Powell, who did all the orchestral arrangements, a very talented guy. And Richard Donner, the director of the movie, originally asked Eric and I to do it, but we handed it over to Andrew because we knew that it was essentially the bulk of it was going to be orchestral.
Just wanted to talk about Vulture Culture for a moment. This was number one in Germany and number two in the Netherlands and Switzerland. A pretty big album there.
It's not my favorite. I thought it, I don't know, it just represented a slightly different period of creativity that I didn't think was that strong. But one of the songs which I originated, with a chord sequence and a title, Days and Numbers. It was, I think, a magnificent vocal performance by Chris Rainbow. He was a remarkable talent. He had a huge speech defect. He had a serious stammer, but note perfect when he was singing. So funny. The whole thing started with that sequence that just literally goes right the way through, start to finish. And I recorded that on one of the early MIDI sequences and a Yamaha DX7, which was the newly released synth of the moment. And yeah, the whole thing was just based around that. Eric wrote some lovely lyrics to it, and Chris did a lovely performance. And it got a lot of play on rock radio for some reason. It's not particularly, I don't know what category it really fits into. It's not really rock, it's not really pop. It's just a kind of a pretty song.
Let me ask you about 1987's Gaudi. I remember a couple of songs were played on Miami Vice.
Silently calling.
I think, Eric coming up with the idea of making an album based on the work of Antonio Gaudi was, I thought, very, very unusual. Really? You want to make a record about a Spanish architect?
There is no one who could approach at all to Antonio Gaudi.
But he was, clearly inspired by Gaudi. I don't know if you've ever been to Barcelona, but it's a remarkable. The Sagrada Familia Cathedral is just a remarkable project which may never be finished. It's so complex, and it certainly will take another 100 years, possibly more. So that you can say that that's never. Some of the architecture is extremely iconic in Barcelona, and he's well known. I had to admit to Eric, I've never heard of him. I just wasn't aware of his work. But once I got to experience the work that he'd done in Barcelona and all over the Catalan region, was remarkable.
What about some of those ideas kind of were transferred to Try Anything Once?
Well, Try Anything Once was the first album without the word project in it. It was, Eric was very tied up in a legal wrangle over our previous work, which was called Freudiana. And he simply was too engrossed in this lawsuit that we were unable to come together to make a record. I was simply just getting bored and needed to do something. So I got together with Ian Bernson, the guitar player, Stuart Elliott, the drummer, Andrew Powell, the orchestra arranger and keyboard player. And I built a little studio in the house where I was living. And we made an album, just under our own steam without Eric. David Pack wrote a couple of songs with me. And that became Try Anything Once. And that marked the beginning of the live show.
Did it feel good to go out on the road after not having done that previously so much?
I never thought I would ever take it on the road. I thought the Alan Parsons project was a studio outfit. Eric, myself, session musicians. It was just never going to hit the road, but I was wrong. Yeah, we figured it was a good time to technologically it was a good time. Synths were sophisticated. We had MIDI. We had really quite good sampling keyboards. So anything that was really difficult, we could sample and reproduce. But we never used tapes. We never actually cheated with a lot of bands put backing vocals on tape and stuff like that. But we've never done that. We've always, sequences, yes.
Sure.
Games people play, the only way to play that is to have that loop going.
Sure.
And Eye in the Sky, same thing. Although, but I appear to play that, the sequence on Eye in the Sky. I let the secret out at a recent masterclass. I showed, here's what I play on Eye in the Sky, and then I walked away from the keyboard and it kept going. So the secret's out. I've enjoyed playing live so much. It's now actually, of course, my principal activity. We're in the studio now, but the main thrust of what I do these days is playing live.
Your educational series, ASSR, your legacy of kind of giving back and leaving some of your wisdom. Tell me about that.
It was driven by the desire to give something back, yes. The co-producer, co-writer, Julian Colbeck, another fellow Brit, had made a VHS series about recording himself, probably 12, 15 years before. And he came to me and sort of just made the suggestion that there was another project, another video project to do, given the changes in technology since that 15-year period. But it's been very well accepted, particularly in schools, colleges, recording courses in universities and so on. And we've now done a book.
What piece of advice would you leave for the up-and-coming generation of musicians, producers, people who are trying to produce art?
Well, things are very different now than they were when I came into the business. I literally started as T-boy and learned through experience. These days, I think budding engineers, producers are expected to be qualified. If you're going to get a job in one of the few commercial studios left, they're not going to take you off the street. They're going to look for somebody who's done a recording course. The difficulty is there are so many facets of the technology in recording now. Musicians have to be engineers have to be musicians, producers have to be engineers, and so on and so on. If you're asking what advice I would give is, don't wear too many hats. Go in for a specialized area that you feel comfortable with.
Hey, thanks so much for watching. I do want to hear from you. What is your favorite album from the great Alan Parsons? Tell us your thoughts in the comments. What does his music mean to you? I would love to hear your take. If you like this content, we do invite you to subscribe below to be a part of our community, to get even more access, more content. Join us on Patreon. Help us keep the music alive. Until next time, 3 chords and the truth. We'll see you soon.